asked you the question, are One Piece and Naruto similar anime? Your answer would probably be no. Yes, they're both shonen. Yes, both their MCs are kind of lovable idiots. But it's kind of at that point that, at least on the surface level, their similarities disappear. One is a story about ninjas in a warring state trying to ideologically clash to figure out who's gonna come out on top and unify the world in a peaceful one-nation army. While the other story is about an ever-growing cast of pirates trying to find what is essentially a lost island filled with the world's secrets. One is a show that prides itself on the size of its main casts and tries to take time to flesh out each and every single one of those characters, and the other is a story that tried to pride itself on the size of its main cast but forgot about the majority of them along the way. One is a sprawling epic that tells a new story on every single island the crew lands on, while the other is a dense, politically moving and driven story about the world reforming to the ideological standards of a growing orphan. And maybe more importantly than all of that, at least to some people, is the fact that powers look very different between these two worlds. One focuses on chakra, ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, genkai, kekemora, while the other focuses on things like haki and devil fruit powers and awakening said devil fruit powers. However, as you spend more time with Naruto and One Piece, you begin to realize that Eiichiro Oda and Masashi Kishimoto, even though they took different roads, kind of arrived at the same destination, and no facet of either of their stories is that more apparent than when it comes down to the power systems of both of their universes. Because, well, yes, on the surface level, chakra and haki and devil fruits are all very different from each other. But as you take a step back and look at these two universes, you begin to realize that every single ability in both of these universes could be explained in the other. Whether that's some kind of flame fruit in the One Piece universe that could be simply explained as flame ninjutsu in the Naruto universe, or the ability to turn yourself into a specific kind of animal in the Naruto universe that could be explained with a devil fruit power in the One Piece universe. And thus today, I want to prove this point exactly. Today I want to explain to you that truly the majority of the abilities in the One Piece or Naruto universes could exist in their counterparts. And thus today we're talking what devil fruits would the Konoha 13 have. And trust me when I say a lot of these polls make a lot more sense than you're currently giving them credit for. But before we get into this cross-universe goodness, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. So there's a million different ways that we could approach this video, but I'm gonna approach this video in the way that we tend to approach Konoha 13 based videos, by saying that we're gonna start with the weakest members of the Konoha 13 and work our way up to the strongest. Kind of unfortunately for us, but also it makes a fair amount of sense, the weaker characters from the Konoha 13 have much more succinct and apt devil fruit abilities than those who are at the top of this list. Because Naruto as a story eventually evolves into a story that states that the stronger you are, the more abilities that you have. And while One Piece kind of does that, that's usually through the medium of haki and devil fruit awakenings. And while devil fruit awakenings can make the devil fruit power that you had before look borderline unrecognizable, looking at you, Gear 5, at the end of the day, really all Gear 5 is Luffy's ability to apply the rubberness of his body to things outside of his body. So as we get to characters like Naruto and Sasuke, who have incredibly diverse kits, we're gonna have to focus on one, preferably the strongest aspect of their kit. On top of this, it's important to note that not everybody in the One Piece universe has devil fruits, and thus not everybody from the Konoha 13 will have devil fruits. Some of the people from the Konoha 13 will be haki specialists, like how some of the people from the Straw Hats are haki specialists. Somebody's got to jump into the water to save Naruto every time he has to jump into the water to save Kiba. See, I wanted to say Sakura because obviously like Sakura is the doctor of the Konoha 13, but I can't see her jumping into the water haphazardly. Anyways, now that we got the rules out of the way, let's get started with our list, which as we all know by this point, if we're talking about the Konoha 13 and starting with the weakest characters, starts with Tenten. Now, ironically, it was Tenten who sparked this idea inside my brain, because when it comes to characters whose abilities are incredibly easy to translate over to the One Piece universe, Tenten kind of takes the cake. See, Tenten in the Naruto universe has one of the least inspiring kits we've ever seen, though one of the most ninja-focused kits we've ever seen, because fundamentally when it comes down to it, Tenten's abilities make sense for ninjas, because Tenten is a weapons specialist, the kind of thing that we would see from a real-life ninja. Unfortunately for us, being a weapons specialist is something that you see in all kinds of fantastical universes, One Piece very much included. So if Tenten was to have a devil fruit power, what would it be? Well, to me, it feels rather obvious that Tenten would have the Buki Buki no Mi, or the Arms fruit, the devil fruit that belongs to Baby 5. See, Baby 5 has one of the wilder devil fruits we've ever seen in One Piece. While some devil fruit turn you into a cannon, like seen with the gun dog, whose name I'm currently forgetting, the Arms fruit grants you the ability to turn any part of your body into any weapon. Whether that be turning your fingers into pistols, your arms into rifles, your body into that of a missile, or your legs into swords, Baby 5 with the arms fruit is able to turn any part of her body into any weapon at any time. And because of this, she has to be one of the most forefront weapon masters in all of One Piece, because her ability grants her the ability to use any kind of weapon, and thus she has to be as proficient with an arm bazooka as she is with a leg sword, turning her into effectively one of the greatest weapons masters we've seen and one of the most diverse universes in existence. And as Tenten's entire kit in Naruto revolves around her being able to master any weapon that she comes into contact with, if she also had the ability to conjure any possible weapon that she wanted to and master said weapon, she could become a legitimate threat on the battlefield. Top of this, considering the fact that Baby 5 is uninjured by things like her own explosions and can reform broken weapons back onto her body, but she does have the ability to injure herself with her own weapons. We've seen this. This would provide a massive durability boost for Tenten, who can very much be injured by her own explosions, and her weapons can be broken beyond repair. But at the end of the day, Baby 5 and Tenten's abilities work very similarly to each other. After Tenten, next up on the list, we have Ino. Now, Ino is where we run into our first logistical issue, because Ino's kit is actually kind of diverse. While a lot of Ino's abilities can simply be boiled down to, oh, she has the ability to switch into other people's bodies, there's a lot of strengths conveyed from that simple switch. Whether it's the ability to gather all the information from that person's head the second you switch into it, or the ability to control their body once you're inside of it, mind-body transfer technique is a pretty strong ability. And thus, there's kind of two answers for possible devil fruits that Ino could have in the One Piece universe. The first being the Meno no Mi, or the Memo fruit, the devil fruit of Charlotte pudding. Devil fruit allows for Charlotte to reach into the brains of people, pull out their memories in the form of film strips, and then manipulate those memories by either adding additional memories or simply cutting away old ones. With this ability, Charlotte is able to control what the objective truth is to the people whose memories she's manipulating. She doesn't want you remembering her wedding. Okay, it never happened. And while Tenten doesn't necessarily have the ability to incept ideas into other people's heads using her mind-body swap technique, she does have the ability to erase memories from the brain of the person that she's inside of. However, unfortunately, this devil fruit doesn't necessarily convey the aspect of control that comes along with Ino's mind-body swap technique. But the same cannot be said for the second fruit that we're going to be talking about, the Ata no Mi, also known as the mind fruit. See, the Ata no Mi not only works almost exactly like the mind-body swapping technique, but also to pull it off, you have to use a somewhat similar hand motion. See, because to pull off the Ata no Mi, you have to make glasses around your eyes. Well, with the mind-body swapping technique, you have to make one big old lens. Both the Ata no Mi and the mind-body swapping technique have very limited ranges. And while the reason that they have limited ranges is different because the mind-body swap technique works as a projectile for your own soul, and the Ata no Mi has a limited range because if it didn't, it would be disgustingly broken. When somebody comes under the effect of either the mind-body swapping technique or the Ata no Mi, fundamentally what they have to undergo is exactly the same. See, because once Ino is inside somebody else's body, she's able to control what they say, control what they do, read their mind. And while she isn't necessarily able to incept a thought into their mind like Charlotte pudding, that actually is something that the Ata no Mi has the ability to do. Because the Ata no Mi conveys 4 abilities. The first is brain scan, which conveys the ability to read the mind of the person that you're focusing on. The second is thought implant. That allows for you to implant a thought into the brain of the person that you're currently inhabiting. The third is parasite voice, which allows for you to control what that person is saying. And the fourth is manipulation, which allows for you to control the body of the person that you're inside of. And that is almost to a T what the mind-body swapping technique does. So while not all of the aspects of the mind-body swap technique are covered by the Ata no Mi, it's certainly enough to convince me. Next up, after Ino, we got Kiba, who is just like Tenten, the owner of an incredibly non-complicated kit. Kiba's abilities boil down to basically 2 things: the ability to turn himself into a wolf, and the ability to turn himself into a wolf that spins. And so Kiba would rather obviously have the Ino no Mi model wolf, or the dog fruit model wolf, the one eaten by Jabra, originally a member of CP9, now a member of CP0. And while none of the aspects of the Ino no Mi convey themselves to owning a dog that is also able to turn into you, or a dog that's able to turn into you, or a giant 2-headed version of itself, really when it comes down to it, whatever Akamaru's doing is not technically one of Kiba's abilities. Yes, the argument could be made that it's Kiba's training that allows for Akamaru to be able to do this in the first place, but at the end of the day, all Kiba can do is turn into a wolf and turn into a bigger, more multi-headed wolf. And that is almost exactly what Jabra's fruit does. It allows him to turn into a man-beast hybrid and a full-on wolf. And eventually, after awakening, after CP9's defeat, it Enies Lobby. While Chopper wasn't able to turn into a bigger, more multi-headed wolf, he was able to turn into an even more powerful version of the old wolf that he was before. And all of the extra strengths that Chopper got from the dog fruit is simply from the fact that he was once a human and is now a dog. He's got teeth and claws, he's faster, he's quicker. And so to me, it feels incredibly obvious that Kiba's getting the dog fruit model wolf. But not everybody's getting something, because next up after Kiba, we're talking about Hinata. See, even as I sit here and try to build a narrative that Naruto and One Piece are more similar than you realize, I have to fully admit the fact that the biggest difference between One Piece and Naruto is the ojos. For those of you who never hit 4th grade Spanish, that means the eyes, I think. Naruto is an incredibly eye-centric story, whether it's the Tenseigan, the Sharingan, the Rinnegan, or the Byakugan. Different eyes of different flavors and different powers play an incredibly central role in basically every single part of Naruto. And same can't be said for One Piece. And so when you encounter a character from the Naruto universe whose powers revolve almost entirely around eyes, well, then there's not really a One Piece equivalence for them. Well, at least not in the categorization of devil fruits. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't ways to sharpen your eyesight or even your precognitive abilities in the One Piece universe. Boosts that we would see from things like having a Sharingan or a Byakugan. On top of this, it's not like we don't see people in the One Piece universe who are solely focused on brawling. Garp, Sanji, Kobe, what we'd call effectively inside of the Naruto universe, taijutsu specialists. People who are able to accomplish ridiculous physical feats without devil fruits, mostly focusing on hockey. And this is the exact kind of categorization that Hinata would fall into. Hinata would not have a devil fruit ability. She would rather be a hockey specialist. Most likely, kind of like Kobe, an observation hockey specialist. See, because while things like the Sharingan and the Byakugan, which grant extrasensory perception, the ability to see through walls, and so much else, do not exist in the One Piece universe, all of those things are achievable through the means of observation hockey. Whether it's quite literally being able to see into the future or observe people through material, observation hockey accomplishes all of the things that the special eyes of Naruto accomplished, just without the eyes. And thus this is absolutely what Hinata would have to focus on if she was in the One Piece universe, circumventing the idea of the Byakugan by focusing on mastering observation hockey. And while aiming for weak points that would be some kind of One Piece translation of chakra points isn't something we've ever seen in One Piece, that doesn't mean that Hinata couldn't do it. See, whether it's Garp vaporizing an entire island with one galaxy impact, or Sanji spinning a bunch and turning his leg into red-hot molten fire, a lot can be accomplished with the applications of hockey. And consider the fact that all the soldiers in CP9 and CP0 specialize in techniques like finger pistol that allow them to harden their finger and punch through people, it's not crazy to assume that through a combination of observation hockey and finger pistols that Hinata could accomplish something akin to Gentle Fist. But enough about people without fruits, let's get back to people who would absolutely need fruits to pull off their ridiculous Naruto-based powers. Because next up on our list, we have Shino. See, Shino's abilities, kind of like Ino's abilities, fall in an awkward in-between two devil fruit area. See, Shino's abilities boil down to two important key factors: the control of bugs and the ability to store bugs inside his body. And neither of those are abilities that we see at all in One Piece. In fact, bugs are rather actively avoided inside the One Piece universe. Unlike Naruto, where the Aburame clan, whose entire kit revolves around the usage of bugs, are one of the royal clans of Konoha. In fact, pretty much the only insect-based ability in all of One Piece is the Mushi Mushi no Mi, also known in English as the Bug fruit. And the Bug fruit comes in a couple of different models, whether that be the Suzume Bashi, also known as the Beetle, and the Hornet. However, these Bug fruits, like the Dog fruit, are just Zoan-type devil fruits that turn you into the thing you're named after. And thus, of the two bug fruits we know of, you can either turn into a rhinoceros beetle or a hornet, either of which are fantastic options, and neither of which align with Shino's kit really at all. Well, yes, Shino does control beetles, and therefore if he was to get one of these devil fruits, it would probably be the beetle form. Shino himself never turns into a beetle. He actually doesn't even have a giant beetle summon. All of the beetles that Shino works with are inside of his body. Oh, and I'm sorry, I did just remember, he does have a summon. It's a giant beetle. But regardless, Shino himself never turns himself into a beetle. He controls beetles. He works with beetles. And therefore the prospect of him turning himself into a beetle, well, technically kind of on brand, doesn't make all that much sense. Which is why with Shino, we need to get a bit abstract. We need to focus less on the beetles and more on the storage. Because instead of turning himself into a giant beetle, it would make a whole lot more sense if Shino rather had the Shiro no Mi, also known as the Castle fruit. The fruit currently in use by one of the worst generation, Capone Beige, an ability that allows for Capone to keep his entire mafia inside of him at all points, as Capone is able to turn his body into that of a castle that miniaturizes anybody who enters. And as cannons are lined up on the outside of his body, even though the bullets that are fired out seem to be the size of peas, once they leave his aura space, they become the size of cannonballs, making Capone a walking warship. This devil fruit would work perfectly for Shino, as he would be able to fill his body with as many giant insects as he wants, and because of the abilities of the Shiro no Mi, those giant insects would be able to exist inside of him. Then whenever Shino wanted to use these insects in battle, he would simply need to open one of his numerous doors and they could fly out of him. And even though Shino wouldn't technically be controlling these beetles like he does with his chakra in Naruto, he could direct them, or maybe if he had Conqueror's Haki, he could control them. Regardless, when it comes down to it, with Shino, we gotta think Shiro. After Shino, we have quite literally the biggest layup on this entire list, because up next we're talking about Sai, whose ability just straight up exists in the One Piece universe, with the Fure no Mi, also known as the Brush Fruit of Kanjuro. The Brush Fruit grants Kanjuro the ability to conjure whatever he wants into a real-life three-dimensional object simply by painting it with his brush. Whether that be real, edible, tangible food, or a cat to ride up the side of a gigantic elephant, or even realistic lifelike copies of himself, anything that Kanjuro wants to conjure, he can. And Sai is in quite literally the exact same camp. With Sai's Super Beast imitation scroll, whatever he paints in his scroll, he's able to bring to life. Be that twin godlike golems or a ceiling tiger, so long as it's painted inside of Sai's scroll with a little bit of chakra, it can be brought to life. And while Sai can't necessarily make things like edible food, he can make birds to ride on, much like Kanjuro. So this one barely needs any explanation. They have the same ability. After Sai, we got Choji. And while unfortunately with Choji, there is no technical amplification devil fruit in the One Piece universe, which is actually kind of a point of contention because Caesar Clown has been actively trying to figure out a way to gigantify people for the world government. There is definitely devil fruit out there that grants you a somewhat gigantification ability. Whether that be things like the Ton fruit that allows you to change your weight to really anything under like 10 or so thousand pounds, or the rubber fruit held by Luffy that allows for him to turn his body into rubber and therefore expand it, with things like his Gear 3 Kong punches or his Gear 4 Bounce Man, all things that make him much larger than he was previously. And while I would love to give this devil fruit to Choji, unfortunately based off what we know about the rubber fruit, gum fruit. Why am I saying rubber fruit? We now, as of Wano, know that the gum fruit isn't exactly just the gum fruit. It's the sun god fruit, and while an aspect of the sun god fruit does make your body rubber, that feels weird to give to Choji. And thus I believe technically the most apt devil fruit to give to Choji to try and encapsulate his ability to control the size of his body would be the Moa no Mi, also known as the more fruit. And for those of you who are thinking, more fruit, who does that belong to? Well, it belongs to the world famous Brindy world, obviously. And for those of you who aren't getting any neuron activation from Brindy World is from the 3D 2-wide time skip movie. And they have a Paramethea devil fruit that allows for them to increase the size and speed of any object they touch, up to 100 times the original. And while this technique is usually used to make weapons bigger or bullets faster, Brindy also has the ability to use this ability on themselves, making themselves up to 100 times faster. And therefore, since the Paramethea devil fruit allows for the control of the size and speed of things, it seems like the closest possible comparison, at least to me, for calorie control in the Naruto universe. But I might be wrong. This is the one I'm least confident on. If you guys can think of an actual gigantification devil fruit in the One Piece universe, tell me in the comments below. But enough about ones that I'm not confident about, because coming up next, I got one that I am deeply confident about, because up next, we got Shikamaru, who would have the wildly obvious Kage no Mi, also known as the Shadow fruit, the devil fruit of Gecko Moria. This is the devil fruit that allowed for Gecko Moria to become the ruler of the shadows. And while technically being the ruler of the shadows in the Naruto universe and the One Piece universe means pretty drastically different things, fundamentally the abilities of Shikamaru and Gecko Moria work kind of the same way. Gecko Moria, with the control of the Shadow fruit, has the ability to control his and other people's shadows. But shadows in the One Piece universe, just like in the Naruto universe, are real, physical things. However, in the One Piece universe, you could be separated from your shadow, at least if Gecko Moria gets his hands on it. And after Gecko Moria is able to get his hands on somebody's shadow and sever it from them using a giant pair of scissors, Gecko Moria is then able to take that shadow and inject it into a lifeless corpse, making him a zombie minion. And after the shadow is separated from the original holder of the shadow, that person will go into a 2-day-long coma. And they will only be able to exist in the darkness of shadows until they're able to get their own shadow back. Because the second that they come into contact with sunlight, they are immediately vaporized. Outside of this, Gecko Moria is also able to use his own shadow offensively, manifesting a shadow clone, if you shall, or turning his shadow into bats that he could hurl at opponents. And thus, since the control of shadows and the weakness of the people you're fighting against being their own actual shadow is something that aligns with both the Kage no Mi and the shadow control jutsu of the Naruto universe, it seems fairly obvious to me that Shikamaru would get the Kage no Mi. It makes double the amount of sense when you consider the fact that Shikamaru is the current Hokage of Konoha, which just means flame shadow. But since we're talking about lifeless corpses, next up, let's talk about Neji. Fortunately, we already described exactly what kind of abilities Neji would have when we talked about what kind of abilities Hinata would have. An observation hockey specialist brawler. So he doesn't really need any more explanation. His kit is fundamentally no different from Hinata's. He would specialize in observation hockey with the precognitive boosts, the ability to see hockey signatures through materials like he would have with the Byakugan, and he would use finger pistols to focus on weak points on his opponent. He's Hinata 2.0. There's no reason to separate them. So why even waste any more time on him? Let's get to our next entry, which is Rock Lee. See, Rock Lee is an interesting one because while I could absolutely sit here and say he'll also focus on observation hockey and being a brawler, not only would giving Rock Lee a devil fruit in the One Piece universe feel wrong, but also giving Rock Lee hockey in the One Piece universe would feel wrong. See, because while yes, it's absolutely established that if you want to be even remotely relevant in the new worlds, you need access to hockey, it's also very frequently established that if you want to be even remotely relevant in the Naruto universe, you need to use ninjutsu. And therefore, Rock Lee's entire existence revolves around proving people and what they believe to be necessary to be relevant in terms of power scheming wrong. So as crazy as it sounds, because quite literally nobody in One Piece is currently trying to do this, not only do I not believe that Rock Lee wouldn't have a devil fruit, I believe that he wouldn't have hockey. In the literal, only people to ever display any level of considerable strength without hockey or a devil fruit are heavily augmented characters like the Vinsmoke siblings or Frankie, characters who are either born, bred, or altered to be as powerful as they currently are. An argument could also be made here for Shirahoshi, but Shirahoshi is quite literally an ancient weapon given life. And so Rock Lee within the confines of the One Piece universe would kind of be an enigma. He would be like Zoro in the fact that he would be constantly training in somewhat ridiculous fashions, but minus the fact that Zoro is one of the most competent armament hockey users in all of One Piece, and therefore the most comparable comparison for Rock Lee in the One Piece universe is kind of Frankie, and he's a robot. So does this mean that Rock Lee is the most unique character in Naruto? Kind of. Also making him the one character from the Konoha 13 that I have legitimately no answer for. And thus, let's move on. Because up next, we gotta talk about the person who Rock Lee should have married in our first entry from Team 7, Sakura. And like I established earlier, the stronger the characters on this list get, the deeper their bags get. However, while Sakura is one of the most powerful people in the entirety of the Konoha 13, her bag isn't all that deep. She's strong, she's fast, her summoning is incredibly powerful, and she heals. Strong and fast can be accomplished with enough hockey training. It's really the healing that needs to be considered when talking about what Sakura's Devil Fruit ability would be. And while there really isn't that many healing Devil Fruit abilities, with Brook and Law's Devil Fruits being some of the only real healing type Devil Fruit abilities, when it comes down to it, there not being a lot of healing Devil Fruits is kind of blown out of the water by the fact that the one true healing Devil Fruit we know of is absurdly broken. And that would be the Devil Fruit that I would give to Sakura, the Devil Fruit currently in use by Mon Cheri, the Chiyo no Mi, also quite literally known as the Heal Fruit. Or the John Cena fruit, if you know what I'm talking about. A wink. And this Devil Fruit, which is insanely broken, and this Devil Fruit allows for the user to heal an injury that anybody else has incurred simply by placing some of their bodily liquid on said injured person. That is to say that if Mon Cheri bleeds, bleeds or cries or even spits on you, if you're injured, you're no longer injured. And the healing capacity of this devil fruit is insane. Moncheries tears can't make you regrow an arm. If your arm is cut off, it can reattach your arm. And while there is a limit to the amount of times that this technique can be used in a given day, Leo does tell Moncherie to heal herself with her own ability and run away, which implies that Moncherie is also able to heal herself with this devil fruit ability. And thus, if Sakura had this ability, she would not only be able to heal everybody else in the battlefield that she heals with either her healing ninjutsu or her Lady Katsio summoning, but she could also heal herself like she does with her strength of 100 seal. And thus the Chiyo no Mi basically covers the entirety of Sakura's kit, though it would include a bit more crying, bleeding, or spitting from her than we'd get in Naruto. But it would be kind of dope to see her get something like impaled and then watch the blood trickling out of that wound quite literally heal her. That is hard as hell. But unfortunately, Sakura is the last entry on this list that I feel really good about, because after her, we have Sasuke. And if I had to ask you this question, what kind of abilities is Sasuke known for? What would you answer? Would it be the Sharingan? Would it be the Susanoo? Would it be lightning? Would it be fire? And thus when I asked myself this question, I had to answer it. And the conclusion that I came to was lightning. Yes, I get that Sasuke has Amaterasu and Kagutsuchi and Great Fireball technique, and as an Uchiha, he's intrinsically tied to flame release abilities, but fundamentally everything that makes Sasuke lies in lightning. Whether it be learning the Chidori and all the different applications that he uses with the Chidori, Kirin, or even his greatest attack being Indra's arrow, everything to me that makes Sasuke and not just another copy and paste Uchiha is lightning release. And thus I believe that Sasuke would have the Goro no Mi, the Logia type devil fruit that allows for the user to become a lightning human. Eaten by Enel, also known as the late game boss that you're not supposed to beat in the beginning of the game that somehow the Straw Hats beat. This Logia devil fruit allowed for Enel to exist as lightning, with the ability to turn his body into lightning and therefore become invulnerable to all non-hockey based attacks, pump 200 million volts through opponents like Sanji, or even travel at the speed of lightning, making him one of the fastest characters in the One Piece universe. Everything about this devil fruit made Enel one of the most dangerous characters in not only early One Piece, but just all of One Piece as a story. And therefore, if Sasuke were to have the Goro no Mi, he could absolutely turn his hand into lightning to use his Chidori, or fire Chidori Senbon, or extend his hand into a lightning blade like his Chidori Sharp Spear. But it was also shown that Enel had the ability to strike long distances away with lightning, like Sasuke's Kirin. And therefore, while Sasuke having the Goro no Mi doesn't take into account his flame ninjutsu and his Susanoo, it does cover enough of his kit that I feel as though it is the most appropriate devil fruit we could give him. But if that one made you upset, boy oh boy, hold on to your butts, because coming up at number 1, we got Naruto. And believe it or not, man, there's no Rasen no Mi. So Nick, how you gonna get out of this one? You gonna give him the ball fruit, the bomb fruit? Heck man, there's probably a wind fruit out there you could give to Naruto. So what are you gonna do, MC Hammer 23? I'm gonna make him a dog. Yep, you heard me. 9-tailed foxes exist in One Piece. The Inu no Mi model Kyubi no Kitsune is a mythical type Zoan devil fruit that allows for the user to turn into a 9-tailed fox. And it is currently being used by a member of the Blackbeard Pirates, Katarina Devon. And how does the devil fruit ability work? Does it allow for them to make a gigantic tailed beast bomb that can wipe out entire cities? No, but it does grant them the ability of a Kitsune, aka the ability to impersonate other people, which is how Katarina was able to turn herself into Absalon to trick Gecko Moria, and that is about all we know about it, actually. But if I had to say, oh, what's one thing about Naruto's kit that you identify as his key strength, you'd probably say Rasengan, and then you'd be like, oh, well, maybe like the Rasen Shuriken, and then you'd be like, okay, wait, no, maybe like Shadow Clone Jutsu, and then you'd be like, Kurama. And while I know that Kurama is not only no longer a part of his kit, but also wasn't really a part of his kit until after he got KCM1/KCM2. Once he got it, he was turning into Kurama left, right, and center. And sure, turning into Kurama appears to be a bit different than turning into a 9-tailed fox in the One Piece universe. But what else would you have me give Naruto? The Hana no Mi because Robin can make clones? I mean, yeah, that's a pretty good answer. But I'm just now realizing that the Hana no Mi would have been way better to give to Choji because Robin's always making herself big. I mean, sure, she's just doing it so Oda can draw giant feet to crush enemies, but she is making big old body parts of herself, and I can't give the Hana no Mi to Choji and Naruto. There's only one devil fruit in existence at a time, idiot. But I will admit, my Naruto choices are a bit thin. That's where you come in. If you believe that there's anybody on this list who I didn't give the right devil fruit to, tell me why in the comments below. And while you sit down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to China.